Hello, 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 and welcome to another edition of the Consiglières or Lieries. I've got Philip Sheng with me today, attorney Philip Sheng, and we're going to talk about the House settlement. This is a recording. We're posting it probably within the next 24 to 46 hours. And so I want everybody to take this and post, comment, forward, do everything you can with it. Get this message out there because Philip is one of my valued consigliaries, and he's going to come in and answer questions on the House settlement for us tonight. Make sure you follow him on the comments down below and get on the Twitter feed, do all that fun stuff. Get involved, as we always ask everybody to do. All right, first of all, Philip, before we dive in, I got to give you a couple of ground rules. One, we're only going to go about a half hour. Two, I want you to introduce yourself. Tell everybody who you are and why you're here.
Sure. My name is Philip Sheng. I'm a lawyer at a law firm called Venable LLP. We're a national law firm. We got about 900 lawyers around the country. We recently started a sports law group, and I was tasked to head that up. So it's something new for our firm, and hopefully be able to do more of these things and get the word out on us. But I played Division I tennis at Stanford. Dabbled in the pros a little bit. Been a huge sports fan and big fan of your show, Nathan. I appreciate you having me on, man.
You're very welcome, and we're going to do more and more of these as time goes. I really appreciate it. Next time you're in Utah, we will have to get together.
Absolutely.
So let me really quick introduce myself. Nathan Balmer Brown, College Football Mafia Network, the Consigliere Show. Nobody else does one on YouTube. I know somebody's going to steal the idea, but until then, this is the place to come for legal, not advice necessarily, but legal information. And certainly the experts in the field addressing the expert things out in the world. So let's start off first. We're going to start like nobody knows what we're even talking about. What is the House settlement?
Golly, we got a half-hour show, so I'm going
We
to give
do.
you
You've
the
got
the,
you've
the,
got
the 30-second
30
version,
seconds.
right? So it's a class action lawsuit. It was started out as a lawsuit for lost NIL opportunities. So Grant House, he was a swimmer at Arizona State, and he's the named plaintiff. He's the House in the caption of it. So him and his lawyers, on behalf of all D1 athletes and all former D1 athletes since 2016, I believe. So suing for lost NIL, and it's sort of morphed into this huge lawsuit that has all sorts of other stuff. So it will, if there's a settlement on the table that will pave the way for revenue sharing. That's probably the most like the hot topic everyone's talking about. It'll allow schools to directly pay athletes up to 20.5 million total. So each school will have the ability to pay, pick and choose which athletes to share up to 20.5 million with. There's other terms of the settlement that have caused some controversy, mostly roster limits. So this idea that each team, each sport will be capped at a certain number of roster spots, and that's actually what's holding up the settlement right now. So the judge, it's the case is pending in the Northern District of California before Judge Claudia Wilkin. She has indicated that she likes the settlement. She thinks it's a good settlement, she said. There's one piece of it that's holding up her approval, and that's this roster limits issue. And that's so we're sort of waiting for her ruling on that.
Let's stay on roster limits because that was the news item of the day last week and the week before. Now we're into college football playoff, and now we're back to revenue sharing. House settlement. Texas A&M just announced they're going to something like I don't know, 180 athletes or something like that. They're going to fund at 100% on their rosters. I'm sure you probably saw that news.
Yeah.
One, is that only going to be attainable by the Big Ten and the SEC as the big dogs, the ones getting the lion's share of the media value? And two, was that surprising to you?
Well, I no, to answer your first question, I do think it's going to be the richest schools are going to be able to only going to be able to do it. It's interesting. It was surprising to me because there's a provision in the House settlement that says if you choose to fund, up to the allowable max of scholarships, your ability to revenue share goes down by 2.5 million. So, the baseline is, everyone gets to share 20.5 million with their athletes. Okay. If you decide to exceed the current scholarship limit and max out your scholarships, I'm talking really high level here. I mean, we could really talk a long time. We only got a half hour, but if you exceed a certain number of scholarships, your ability revenue share goes down 2.5 million. So it's a little surprising. It was surprising for me to see Texas A&M announce that it's going to fund the max 150.
Right.
It'll be interesting.
Oh, was it 150? I thought it was 180. Okay.
Yeah, 150.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's going to be different for each school depending on how many sports that they have, right? If they have more sports,
right.
or if they have, more sports teams, that number will be different across different schools. But I think it was Texas A&M has announced it. There's a couple other schools that have announced it. It'll be interesting to me to see how many other schools do it, just because that ability to share revenue goes down by 2.5 million. And 2.5 million, that's going to get you, that could get you one really good quarterback. It could get you, 5 really good, I don't know, tight ends, whatever, right?
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see. It's got to be approved first, which is, well, that's another interesting thing, right? Is if the court doesn't approve the settlement before, I think July 1st is the deadline that the NCAA has set in the settlement itself, right?
Right.
They want everything to go into motion on July 1st, and Judge Wilkin is sort of sitting on it right now. There's no indication whether or not, she could approve it today, she could approve it 2 weeks from now, or she could deny it today, deny it in 2 weeks, and set a trial date. Their schools, I'm hearing, have indicated that they will go ahead and pay students anyways,
Yes.
under the protection of state laws. There's some state laws that say, the NCAA can't enforce, can't restrict a school's ability to
Tennessee, most recent.
Tennessee, most recently. Tennessee's been the most aggressive. Tennessee's laws is very interesting. It's not even so. Most states have a carve out there saying that it's only until the state law, whatever that provision will end upon approval of the House settlement. So
Right.
Most states, there's only been about a dozen or so far. They're at least acknowledging that there is a lawsuit out there, pending lawsuit with terms that might affect revenue sharing. But Tennessee was basically like, we don't even care. We just never, forever. Schools are the NCAA can't restrict schools on paying NIL, basically.
I want to really quick thank all the DMs and questions that people sent me. I had to turn the tweet off that I asked for questions. People are really interested in this House settlement, and I appreciate everybody that submitted questions. I can't give any one person credit for any one question just because there's so many that overlap. So I want to thank everybody for participating and getting involved with your questions, and I hope Philip is informative and I'm able to ask the right ones that you want to know. Okay. We talked roster limits, and not to say we can't get back to it. You basically described what the House settlement is. Let's talk revenue share. That's the thing that you have two pieces to that. Revenue share is the piece that the 20.5 million the schools can spend on their own, and they can spend it however they want across their athletic department. And then there's third-party NIL, or people just call it NIL, and that's coming from either collectives or your local oil and lube shop that pays athletes. Now, you can call it or define it how you want, but where do we sit with that piece of it?
Well, so they've announced this clearinghouse.
The Deloitte clearinghouse.
The Deloitte clearinghouse. Any payments that exceed $600 will be plugged into their algorithm, their program, their software, whatever, and it's going to basically spit out a thumbs up or a thumbs down, basically. And it's the idea is to determine whether or not that payment is commensurate with that athlete's particular skill set or what other athletes similarly situated are being paid, and whether it's a fair I think it's fair market NIL deal. The
fair
idea
market. Let's say a fair market with quotation marks.
And so it's got a lot of issues, right? I mean, one thing, right, you're restricting an athlete's ability to make NIL, right? So that's the obvious low-hanging fruit problem with it. The other problem with it that I see, and you'll appreciate this, right? So BYU, right? They just paid a very good basketball player to come to play for them. he played high school ball or AAU ball in Utah. He has, Utah connections.
Yep.
Is that athlete's NIL, worth more in Utah as it is to other states? I mean, I think it is, right? I think
Absolutely.
I think he command, like I don't want to, I don't know what the number is. We'll just say, 4 or 5 million. Does he command 4 or 5 million dollars in some other market? I'm not sure he does, but there's a lot of, at least value to the market, to the community, to BYU, and having a guy like that play for that school. So it'll be interesting to see. My point is, it'll be interesting to see, what that Deloitte algorithm software spits out. Whether they say, hey, you know what, you guys overpaid. This is starting to look more like pay for play as it is, as opposed to NIL. And then what's interesting too. I don't know the details, but I recall seeing something in there that let's say the Deloitte thing gives the thumbs down.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily stop the athlete from playing. It's more just like a play at your own risk. That if the NCAA comes and actually tries to bring like an enforcement action, you sort of risk your eligibility or something like that. Deloitte's not the one that has the final say. It's the Deloitte piece of it is really just the hey, thumbs up, thumbs down. We don't want to get sued, so don't.
Well, and it's just a calculator, right? It's just
yeah.
doing the math form, saying or spit it out an answer. There's an
Right.
enforcement arm that is going to have to do something completely
What
different.
do they call it? I forget what it's called. The enforcement arm.
CSC, I can't remember what it
Yeah,
is.
I forget what it stands for. That will actually do the enforcement of it. Yeah, I said NCAA earlier. It's not the NCAA doing the enforcement. Actually, it's the CSC entity that's doing the enforcement.
Right.
Look, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. There's going to be lawsuits. Everyone's saying there's going to be lawsuits. It's unclear, what if an athlete would be able to bring in a lawsuit. It's something that I've been very curious about is that the settlement that it's as drafted right now has some very broad releases. The settlement says you waive or whatever, right? You waive your rights to sue for blah 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 blah.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see how much the NCAA relies on that settlement as protection from lawsuits like that. I've heard people say that agents and collectives are going to sue. It'll be interesting to see if how those play out. I think rest assured there will be lawsuits, and I think there are going to be a lot of scrutiny on this formula. I think Deloitte will probably want to protect it as a trade secret, like not tell anybody like how it's doing the math, like how it's what's how the sausage is being made. I think inevitably, there's going to be some sort of discovery into that. I don't know if it's public, it'll be made public or not. But
would that be subject to a FOIA request?
I don't think so. It's a private entity's trade secrets. I haven't thought about it. I'm thinking about it off the cuff. It would be Deloitte's trade secrets. I think their formulas, their method of doing. They don't want the secret sauce being let out, and they don't want some Google, somebody just putting their own calculator online where people can start plugging in people's names and start having their own thing spit out thumbs up or thumbs down. That's actually kind of a cool idea, actually. Now that I think about it, maybe you and I could start something like that, like a website where we do our own like NIL calculator, our own clearinghouse, where we try to mimic the Deloitte formula, try to figure out how they're calculating it. And,
hey, if you know an analytician, somebody that can do the stats, I'm happy to be the front guy for it.
Just plug in the name and the name, position, some stats, and it'll plug out a number, right?
I mean, just thinking off the cuff, though, those aren't the only questions. How about whether they come from a single parent household? What if they come from an inner city and they need the money more? What about geolocation? You're moving from Chicago and you're going to go play in a Provo. $3.5 million in Provo is a princely sum. In downtown LA, you're like the cop on the corner.
Yeah, I mean, those are interesting questions. I mean, at the end of the day, the money is supposed to be for that athlete's name, image, and likeness. It's not supposed to compensate you for your, I don't know, like the cost of living in Utah as opposed to LA, right? I mean, theoretically, someone's ability to be like a company's ability to market an athlete should be the same
Should.
across, like it should be similar. Look, but this goes to my point earlier, right? Like maybe an athlete's more marketable in Utah as opposed to LA, so maybe there's a bump there. But I don't see a world in which we start factoring in the standard of living in one city versus another.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like it's not. I mean, I don't see it being tied really to that athlete's name, image, and likeness. Those are more just like that starts looking more like pay for play, like you're an employee being paid. It's like I'm being paid to relocate to another law firm in New York, and I want to bump because of the cost of living. Not that's not really tethered to whether you collective or you school can market my name. Theoretically, I think I don't know. You use Southern California, so theoretically, a UCLA should be able to market a star athlete the same as a Texas. I mean, it's a lot cheaper in Texas to live in Texas, right?
Well, and hey, I'm going to cut you off there too. You've already mentioned states that have passed special NIL laws. You keep more of what you make in Utah because it's all tax free. Florida is all tax free. Tennessee's all tax free. I haven't seen anything like that from California. Now, I might have missed it, but I didn't see that in New York or Washington or Oregon with these. They are different demographics. These states actually need their tax revenue to feed their social beast. So what is Deloitte? I'm not saying you have the answer for these questions. What I'm saying is, and I'm trying to get across, you and I are conversing about this, how complex this problem is.
It's very complex. I mean, you raise a good point, right? Is the Deloitte software going to take into account that one state is not going to tax an athlete's NIL, whereas one state will, right? So in the state that does tax, does that mean that athlete should get a bump?
Right.
I don't know. That's a great question. And then we start getting into other stuff, right? You get like Texas, they don't even charge tax on. They don't even charge tax on am I right?
Sales tax. I mean,
yeah,
they don't have sales tax either.
Yeah, there's no. Is it sales tax or income
state
tax?
Maybe it's
income tax, right? So, you asked some very good questions.
I'm a bright guy. I try to do things like that.
Yeah, I mean, so we don't know, and ultimately, like, it'd be great to have some transparency. I think that's one of the problems with just college sports in general is like the waiver process, for example. Like, there's not real transparency, like how the NCAA is making these decisions. It's really behind closed doors. I hope there's some transparency with the Deloitte thing. I just don't. I suspect it's going to be pretty black box, and that's going to lead to a lot of conspiracy theories, we wanted this player to go. We didn't want this player to go to this school, so Deloitte gave him the thumbs down, right? Or the SEC commissioner wasn't happy with this, so he told whatever to hit a button and give him the thumbs down. I don't know. It'll be interesting. I mean, we won't know until it goes into practice. I think a lot of these questions are just really, I think a lot of the stuff the NCAA does is really just sort of do it and then we'll fix it along the way. Trial and error, right? We'll fix it along the way, and they sort of use lawsuits to sort of inform their, what's the next step, right? Okay, you said this was unlawful. Let's fix that piece of it and try to get the next piece, approved.
All right, I can't believe 20 minutes has gone by like that. I warned you about that. Really quick, do a reset. Make sure you follow Philip on Twitter and watch for the hashtag, the Consiglieres. I've got you've met him, Philip. What'd you think about Consigliere team?
It's a great team. I mean, I'm sort of like the newbie to the group. As I mentioned, we just started a sports law group around 6 months ago. And so, the folks you have lined up, they're like the heavy hitters. They're like the folks that you see, like the 15, 20,000 followers at least, right? And here I am on your show. Sure. I'm a nobody, man.
Oh, I don't know. You guys are all. This is a wonderful team, and Mitt Winter is very temperate. He sticks around. He hasn't left the group yet. So as long as him and Doug Rohan, the guys that were there from the beginning, are still around, I think we're doing okay. Anyway, so quick reset. Make sure you follow Philip and then watch for that hashtag, the Consiglieres. And we will be focusing more on these shorter videos, I think, for a while. People are really hungering for this additional data, expert data, and not just talking heads like me and, all these other people on YouTube and Twitter. All right. So last 10 minutes here. Let's talk about it. You've mentioned it a couple times, but the counter or the lawsuit's back. Let's assume Judge Wilkin eventually approves this thing, right? Puts her
Yep.
pen to paper. You and I have talked about this many, many times. There are lawsuits waiting in the fringes. There's lawsuits
Yes.
against the Deloitte clearinghouse. There's lawsuits against the roster limits. There's against the 20.5 million revenue share.
Yes.
And then there's just general lawsuits. I am, Cal Poly Tech, driving school, and I don't want to pay my basketball fees into subsidizing Ohio State's NIL fund.
Yes.
But does this thing ever really get enacted, or is it just sort of buying time for the next thing?
I think it's buying time till the next thing. I think everyone knows that there are going to be a lot of lawsuits. I mean, I think there are lawsuits already drafted. I know there's people drafting lawsuits right now.
I know there's a few as well.
As fact.
Yeah.
And so, I know that there are law firms who are going to appeal the roster limits or seek an emergency stay, because the roster limits issue, right? Like once that goes into effect, it's really hard to undo, right? Once you implement roster limits, cut all the kids, it's very hard to undo, right? So it's almost like, you've got to move quickly and seek an emergency, stay or whatever the legal mechanism is. There are going to be challenges to the 20.5 million cap. We already know that. There's going to be Title IX, appeal.
I didn't even bring up Title IX.
And that one, I think, not just appeal of, the settlement in terms of back damages, right? So the biggest complaint for Title IX is the back damages formula, right? Like we're paying, mediocre football players, $30,000-$40,000 or whatever the number is, and
right,
whereas star athletes on female athletes somewhere else are getting paid nothing, right? Essentially, $200. Yeah. You're also going to get Title IX lawsuits moving forward in the sense that with revenue sharing, how much of that is revenue sharing? Does that need to be proportionate to does the money need to be equal or proportionate to each other, equal with respect to men versus women, or does it need to just be tied to the football players revenue, like he's the one generating revenue, so therefore we can pay him whatever 85% pay football players 85% of revenue, and then leave 5% for women's basketball. Is that fair? Is that compliant with Title IX? Right, there's gonna be a lot of lawsuits there. The clearinghouse, for sure, gonna be lawsuits. To answer your original question, like, is this just sort of like getting us through? I think so, because if House case goes to trial, everyone's saying that the NCAA is probably going to lose, and they're saying that the NCAA is going to go bankrupt, and then at that point, what happens, right? So I think a lot of folks see this lawsuit as just a way for the NCAA to stay afloat or stay relevant, because I think college sports will continue even if the NCAA goes under. There's going to be someone's going to save college sports. We don't need the NCAA per se. Yeah. And so, yes, I think this lawsuit is really just a way to keep things going. But eventually, I think it's going to become too much, I think. I don't know. And NCAA still hopes that they're going to get that, some congressional help. That
antitrust protection.
Who knows what's going on there? I mean, I see a different report every day. I see a congressman do a tweet, everyone gets excited, and then like nothing happens. Or I see like, I don't know, like a lot of reading between the tea leaves and stuff, reading between the lines. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, I probably at the bottom. I just added Title IX just for my notes in the future, and then I should have had on there congressional action or antitrust protection. The NCAA or the A4, whatever the new organization is, if they have one, has that protection from Congress. Because right now, anything they pass, we've already talked about. It's a myriad, meaning unlimited different types of lawsuits that you could formulate. And just recently, we've seen all these. We've even had lawyers step up and say, "I'm ready to go. I'll represent you. Just hit me up with a DM." I mean, I thought that was remarkable when I saw that, because what does that mean? It means that it's basically a feeding frenzy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, yeah, no, that's, I know what you're talking about, right? It's like you're sort of like, advertising for like, hey, I need a client. Like, I want to sue the NCAA. I see this as being unlawful. I just need the right plaintiff. I just need my version of Grant House, right? I need a guy or athlete, male, female, who checks all the boxes. You live in this state, you had this
Right.
opportunity, you're denied it because of these grounds. Um, you're a non-revenue generating sport, or you're a football, whatever, right? You, as a lawyer, you have your boxes that you want to check. If you meet these criteria, I want to represent you because I feel like we can take down this rule or that rule.
Right.
And the one you're talking about was a Texas. The lawyer was posting, wanted a Texas
Yeah, it's Tyler
athlete.
Phillips. It's Tyler
Yeah, yeah.
Phillips. I'm
So
going to try to
it'll
get
be
him on a
interesting.
show. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Get him on the show. I'd love to
I'm
hear
trying.
what his plans are. What his ideas are. Because I think there are a lot of I think this is how it gets done. I think it requires lawsuits to sort of shape the law and sort of
Right.
um, inform what conduct is acceptable and what's not, because right now we have a lot of lawsuits from different athletes, different places. I think it's all sort of coming together, right? Once you have enough of these lawsuits, the courts start looking at each other. Courts
Yep.
from different countries are looking at, okay, well, this court held this, that court held this. Let's sort of see how we can, harmonize everything. And I think that's how. I mean, that's unfortunately the path that we're on. Of course, if Congress steps in and grants the NCAA an antitrust exemption, we'll see, a lot more. I guess. Well, essentially, the NCAA will be able to start making rules that withstand scrutiny.
Right. They'll put the hammer down. I think they'll roll back a lot of the stuff and
They
change
will roll
procedure.
back. I
Yeah.
think I think there's going to be, look. I don't know what that antitrust exemption will look like. I don't know if it's going to have like a partial exemption, right? I think Congress is, Ted Cruz has indicated that he believes NIL is important, that student athletes should be able to make earn money off their NIL.
Right.
So I don't see it all going away, but I suspect you'll see this clearinghouse get a lot more credibility. Yeah, the NCAA is going
Okay.
to definitely move, definitely going to ride that, beat that drum, ride that wave.
Again, just really quick, Tyler Phillips is the one that we've connected. I've hooked him up into this consigliere group. I want to get him on a show because I have every question you brought up. I have open questions about too. This is a new angle on all this, and I'd really like to understand kind of what he sees as the biggest challenges for House. So I'm going to try to track him down. Hopefully, I can get him sometime after this show. Okay, my
Yep.
time is up. We've gone
Yes.
a half hour. I warned you. I told you this was gonna. I was gonna have to contain myself. This is the last question,
Sure.
and it's really the only one that matters right this second. I think you believe the House settlement. Judge Wilkins going to approve it. Do you have any idea when that may happen?
So I actually think she's going to deny it. Actually, I don't.
Oh,
I
I
think she's going to
apologize.
deny
I'm
it. Yeah,
sorry.
no, you're all right. I
I'm
I
sorry.
think I think she's eventually going to approve it. I don't think the parties are going to let roster limits get in the way.
Okay.
My gut feeling is that just given how long it's been, given her last order, I thought it was fairly clear as to what she wanted to see happen. She's not afraid to stick it to the NCAA or the plaintiffs' attorneys. She's not afraid to stick to her guns, and so my gut tells me she's going to deny it at some point, this
Okay.
week or next, and then the parties are going to move real quickly to actually present something that is consistent with what she was originally asking for. That's my gut. I could be totally wrong. I have been wrong. I could be totally wrong, and she could approve it like 5 minutes after she could have approved it right now. I'm
Right.
checking my phone. I don't have 100. I don't have 1,000 text messages.
Well, I think, and I was talking. Finally, she will approve it. I
Yeah,
apologize. I did. I put a time in there, and that was
yes,
confusing for you. I'm sorry about that.
no, you're fine.
The roster thing, I do think is a big bugaboo. Nobody wants to go to court.
Right.
I think everybody can agree on that. So we'll have to see. But all the stuff we've talked about now will be evergreen, right? None of these really facts are going to change much between now and whenever it finally gets approved, unless you can imagine something that I'm not picturing.
No, I think everyone's just sort of holding their breath and just seeing what's going to happen. And the parties were warned pretty sternly last time, like, don't do anything until you get approval, like, don't prematurely implement any terms.
Right.
And so I think everyone's being cautious in terms of putting things into motion. But they're definitely preparing stuff, right? Like we saw the Deloitte thing come up,
Right.
and we saw the CSC enforcement arm come up, right? So they're definitely putting the pieces in place. But in terms of like anything that they can't quickly undo, I think they're being a lot more cautious this time around, right? They implemented roster limits before approval, and that could be disastrous for them, depending on how Judge Wilkin comes out.
That did not make the judge happy. We
No.
both can agree on that.
No.
All right, my time is up. I want to thank Philip Sheng, the real Shenger on Twitter. Look him up. He's very kind and gracious, and if you send him a DM, I don't think he'll bite your head off.
No, please do.
But it's a wonderful area to be in. The consigliere group is really important. I appreciate you being part of it, and I want to thank everybody for being here, watching this show. It's going to be on demand, so you guys continue to pass it around on Twitter. If you do have questions, feel free to follow up with me, follow up with Philip, or do hashtag the consiglieres, and we will try to answer those questions. And you know what? Until it's done, it's not done, and we will try to finish as we go. I really appreciate your time, Philip.
Yep.
We will we'll hook up again in the near future, depending on what happens with House, and certainly whatever the House next step is, we'll probably be getting together to do that.
Sounds great, man. It's always a pleasure speaking with you, Nathan.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Philip. Everybody have a great day. We will talk to you soon. College Football Mafia, collegefootballmafia.com, College Football Mafia on Twitter. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Everybody have a great night. Bye-bye. Peace.